have a really quite inspirational story that has the potential to give hope to so many people. 2020 was the year where you got your diagnosis of colon cancer. So maybe you could set the scene for us. How were you at that time? What was going on? What symptoms did you get? And how did you feel when that diagnosis was made?
Well, at the beginning of 2020, I was 48 years old and I was in the best shape of my life. My entire life, I've had quite a healthy lifestyle. I was an athlete my entire life, practicing martial arts and boxing and different sports. But really, my 48th birthday, I've decided to really push it a little bit forward. And I was doing martial arts, boxing, parkour, CrossFit, not to the point of exhaustion, but I was very active. I was 70 kilos, which is a great weight for me. I was 9% body fat. I was in peak condition. And about 6 months before I was diagnosed, I started to have blood in my stool. And I started to have psoriasis. I had psoriasis before, it went away and came back. So I knew there was some kind of inflammation. I also knew that I had a family history of colon cancer. Both my dad and my grandfather died of it. So I should have been more aware. I should have been more worried. And looking back, I made a lot of stupid decisions. I've decided that somehow my lifestyle would protect me from my genetic background, and I didn't really pay attention. I would have probably caught the cancer at stage 1 or stage 2, which would have been much easier for me in my fight against cancer. But I looked the other way. And after 6 months, I started to have some pain, really, really bad pain. I live in the US, so I was in South Carolina at the time. And I decided to go back to France and be tested. And boom, here came the diagnosis. And it was a stage 3, borderline stage 4 colon cancer. And it was, apparently the tumor was on a nerve. So it was so painful. Some days I just wanted to die. It was so painful. Yeah. So here I am in France. My wife is in the US. And I'm there with that diagnosis. And for 3 days, I freeze. I'm completely frozen. I don't know what to do. And the doctors, the oncologists in Paris keep pushing me, pressuring me, telling me, look, if you don't do something soon, you're going to die. With your family history, plus the location of the tumor, plus the size of the tumor was 10 centimeters. And they told me you have to start chemo right away. They prescribe between 12 and 24 sessions of chemo to start with, then about 6 months of radiation, and then surgery. After 3 days, I woke up and I thought, you know what? You've been studying martial arts, you've been studying health, you've been studying Chinese medicine for 40 years. You need to do something with that. So I decided to tell them, no, I'm not going to go your way for now. I've read every possible scientific literature I could find on how to heal cancer naturally, what kind of food, what kind of diet could help, fasting, intermittent fasting, prolonged fasting. And I decided to put that to the test. So I started a 21-day water fast to see what happened before any treatment. So that was at the very beginning of the disease. And I've decided to not follow my oncologist's advice for now. I kept an open mind, but I wanted to try something else before. So that's basically how everything started. So I did a 21-day fast, water fast, with 2 or 3 times a week, a little bit of wheatgrass juice, fresh wheatgrass juice, just to give me a little boost, but mostly water. And at the end of that 21-day fast, the tumor was 50% smaller. It went from 10 centimeters to 5.5 centimeters without any medication, not even an aspirin, nothing. Went from 21-day fasting to intermittent fasting, 1 meal a day with a strict organic ketogenic diet.
Yeah.
Well, about 5 months in.
5 months.
So,
yeah.
Yeah. It took a while. And what I forgot to mention is, for me, the genetic predisposition to the colon cancer is only a small part of the equation. And I'm not using any scientific language here. It's just what I felt and how I explain it. But for me, that part of the cancer was sleeping, it was dormant, but something was the trigger. And that something was probably stress. And even though I didn't have a lot of what most people would call stress in their life, I have a job that I love. I have a wife that I love. I travel the world all the time, but there was a lot of stress on my body. I was in Asia, traveling in Asia, in Europe, 6, 7, 8 months of the year. I had hours and hours and hours of jet lags every single year. I was really tired from inside, from the jet lags and everything. That's the first thing. The second thing, my wife and I were living in Singapore for 10 years. And from Singapore, we decided to move to the US. And from then, we started a green card process, which was a nightmare. It was 3 years of spending money and spending money and spending money and waiting for an answer, waiting, going to France, to the US embassy, going back to Singapore, going to the US to see the lawyer. Well, it was a nightmare. And I think that stress, that waiting period was another part of it. And the last part of that stressful period was when COVID hit. I'm a professional martial art instructor, and I have schools all around the world. And all our schools closed down when COVID hits, and people start to stay at home, and all the business started to close. And that was a big hit on us financially, but also psychologically. Everything that my wife and I and my team have built for the past 15 years, everything was crushing, everything was going down. And I think that period of that stressful 3-year period definitely was the trigger for the cancer. Yeah, that's what I think.
It's interesting, Fred, that over the last few years in my own medical practice, I don't see that many patients with cancer. I see a lot of patients with autoimmune disease. And when I look at their history and I go through their whole life history, I would say over 90% of the time, if not over 95% of the time, in the few months prior to the diagnosis of their autoimmune disease, there has been some significant type of stress in their life, whether it's a divorce, a bereavement, a job loss, something significant. And again, all these diseases, whether it's autoimmune disease or cancer, are multifactorial. There's all kinds of things that actually drive them. And I'm not saying stress causes the autoimmune disease in these patients, but it certainly appears to be the trigger for many of them. And when I hear you explain your story of you actually getting symptoms, getting the diagnosis of cancer, it sounds like you're very much coming to that conclusion as well, that stress may not have been the sole cause, but it certainly was a significant trigger.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm convinced of it. And I talked with different doctors, regular doctors, MDs, oncologists, naturopath, and everybody kind of agreed that there's a root cause to cancer, a trigger, and a lot of things in between. And like you say, cancer is multifactorial, like most disease anyway. But when I realized that cancer was multifactorial, I thought to myself, healing must be too. And that's what I did, all the things that I did, and that we're probably going to discuss.
You have been bleeding from your back for a few months. After 5 months, you decide, I'm going to go and get this checked out.
Especially that I thought I was so healthy. I don't have any kind of metabolic disease. I was not obese. I never smoked. I never drink alcohol in my life. I don't drink coffee. I don't eat junk food. I've been doing intermittent fasting for 20 years. I eat mostly organic. That was my life before the cancer. So it was almost a surprise. And only after my brain went to my family history and, okay, well, maybe. But basically for 3 days after the diagnosis, I froze. Like I told you at the beginning, I didn't eat, not because I wanted to fast, but because I wasn't hungry. I was in my bed. I was completely lethargic, and I just didn't know what to do. I was frozen. After 3 days, I knew that state could last forever until I die. So I kicked myself in the butt, and I told myself 3 things. Number 1, this cancer is not going to kill me. Number 2, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And number 3, may food be Thai medicine. Those were the three sentences, the three things that I told myself the day I woke up, which was day number 4. And from there, I've decided that I would do anything to save my life. And the number one was knowledge. To me, knowledge was the key. And I was not convinced that my oncologist knew everything, was completely up to date, and has the mind open enough to look into other protocols than the one that he's been learning and doing for the past 4 years. So that's where I start reading Professor Thomas Siegfried's work, Professor Maurice Israel in France, all those great biologists, not doctors, biologists, who have looked into cancer their entire life. And I've discovered that there are few things that I could do. Fasting was one of it. Intermittent fasting. They were all very big on the ketogenic diet. Of course, stress reduction. So resting, breathing, meditation, Tai Chi. And there's so many things that I did. And I just wanted to find as many ways to attack that cancer from as many angles as possible. That was my goal. My idea was that if cancer was a ball, I wanted to strike to hit that ball from any possible angles, psychologically, emotionally, physiologically, physically, everything I could think about, I've learned about, and I applied it. I woke up, maybe not a different person, but I woke up without the filter of fear, the glasses of fear in front of my eyes. And what you said is exactly what I told myself. You've been teaching that your entire life. You've been training your entire life for a physical fight that might never come, but the inner fight is here, and it's time to do something about it. I couldn't say that I was super positive and super dynamic and energized, but in my head, the fight has started, and I was ready for it.
But with hindsight, were there some things that you could have done differently? And how did your lifestyle, when you decided you're going to get better from this cancer, how was that different from before? Because as you say, before, you were already really healthy.
Yeah, and that's a question I get a lot. What's the difference between everything you did before and everything you did during to heal yourself? And the best answer I can come up with is compounding. Before, once a year, I would do a 3-day fast. Intermittent fasting pretty much every day. A lot of things that I knew and that I do teach to others, I couldn't, or I thought I couldn't practice them every day. I mean, there's so many hours in a day. And when I was sick, I dedicated my entire time to my healing. And I also recognized that I was in a perfect environment to do what I did. Maybe not everybody can do that. I don't know. Maybe yes, maybe no. But I was in the perfect environment. I live in the Blue Ridge Mountains in South Carolina. There's no noise, no pollution, nothing around. I have farmers markets, organic farmers markets everywhere around me. My wife and I have been married for 20 years. In 20 years, we never fought. Maybe we fought once at the very beginning. We never argue. We never fight. I don't have money problem. I didn't have to go to work. I was in a perfect condition to rest and meditate on my healing and do what I did. And I had all the time in the world to apply everything that I knew, plus all the new things that I've learned, and do nothing but that every single day. So I compound everything that I knew. So every day I did intermittent fasting. I ate the proper food. We will discuss that later. I did my breathing. I did my meditation. I did my Tai Chi. I did some rebounding on a mini trampoline to boost my lymphatic system. I did everything I could to boost my immune system. I rested a lot. If I was watching a movie, I watched nothing but comedies, nothing stressful, nothing horrible, nothing ugly. Only thing that made me feel good and relax and laugh. And I spent a lot of time with my wife laughing, with my dog playing. So I did everything I could to to force my body to heal and to put my body in the perfect condition to heal.
Yeah.
For me, according to my research, one of my goals with fasting and intermittent fasting was to keep my insulin as low as possible for as many hours during the day as possible. So I've decided to go with one meal a day. I usually ate at night, and my meal was mainly ribeye steak, and butter. So I went I was on the edge of a carnivore, between a ketogenic and a carnivore diet. And the reason was not religious beliefs as far as nutrition comes. It was not something completely written in stone. It was simply because those two things, fat and beef, were the only thing I could take. Everything else, and 5 minutes after my meal, I would be on the floor crying because of the pain. I couldn't have anything with fiber. Fiber would kill me. So no vegetables, no fruits, because I've decided to go with 0 sugar, so not even fruits. And I'm not saying those things are not healthy and good for you, and I have them now again. But at the time, I was on a 0 fiber, 0 sugar diet.
Where was the pain? When you were getting the pain, where was that?
Exactly where the tumor was.
Right.
After a few months, I've discovered that I could do vegetables in a juice form. So I started juicing. I bought a cold press juicer, and I pressed seasonal vegetables, and that worked also very well for me. So half of my healing period, I did carnivore diet, and the other half, a strict ketogenic diet with meat, organ, bone broth, good fats such as avocado, olive oil, ghee, butter, and some vegetable juice.
Yeah. So can I ask, was the first part of your healing from a dietary standpoint, at least, carnivore, because that was really the only thing that you could tolerate? And so you were forced almost into that route, because who wants to be in pain? Who wants to eat things and make their pain worse, right? So that's completely understandable. And you say along that journey, you discovered that you could tolerate, or you could have vegetable juice.
So between those two persons, I've decided to try the juicing, and it worked. No pain. I felt that I could get tons of micronutrition and antioxidants into my body with that. So I added the juice. After about a month and a half into carnivore, I started to add the vegetable juice, and it worked very well for me.
So you were tolerating the vegetable juice, no pain, but were you starting to feel anything else? A bit more energy, a bit more vitality? I mean, was there anything else that you're starting to notice as you bring in the vegetables?
Yes. And I cannot say for sure that it's the vegetable juice or if it's because I was healing. It's probably a little bit of both. But yes, I felt a little bit more energy when I mixed beef liver, bone broth, and vegetable juice. Definitely.
Yeah.
I think my martial art training has a lot to do with that. And I'm 50 years old today. I started martial arts 45 years ago. So that's a long time of practice. I traveled all over the world for martial arts. I lived in Asia for many, many years. I went to China, Japan, the Philippines, Singapore, Indonesia, India. Everywhere I could travel for martial arts, traditional medicine, and Asian spirituality in the world, I went. So I think that really helped me to trust two things: my feeling, my inner feeling, and my intuition. And that really helped me make some decisions for my healing and for the path I was going to follow for my healing.
Yeah.
Even though, like I mentioned before, it was not that easy. That's just...
Could you explain to me what martial arts are, and why does a lifelong history of practicing martial arts in many ways set you up in a really good way to fight this cancer?
Martial arts, as we understand it today, which is a mix of fighting skills and a philosophy that goes with it, apparently originated in India. From India, moved to China, from China to the Okinawan Island, and from there to Japan, and spread out all over Asia. But it's a path. We call it the way of the warrior. And the way of the warrior is not necessarily he who goes to war, but he who has the ability to stop the war. The Chinese character for martial arts, Wushu, the first Chinese character, Wu, means he who can stop a spear. So it's not he who can fight or he who can kill with one fist. It's he who can stop a spear. Therefore, he who can stop a conflict with his abilities. But when you want to apply everything you've learned through the martial arts to save your life, really, especially from an invisible opponent, which in this case was a cancer, it's another story.
Yeah.
And I believe that the strength and the discipline that I've learned from martial arts definitely helped me. When I said that I did a 21-day fast, even though it's not unusual in the scientific literature, a lot of people tell me I could never do that. And what I tell them is, if your life depended on it, you could. Trust me. It's a completely different story when you fast just to try it or as a prevention or to stay healthy or to lose a few pounds. And if you fast because you hope it's going to save your life.
Yeah.
So it's a completely different story. But that being said, the martial arts philosophy, like I said again, the discipline, the structure, the values, the ability to start something and finish it and not look right and left until it's finished. That's something that I've learned from martial arts, and I definitely applied it in my healing. Yes. So communicate with a few people who did the 21-day fast, and they believed that it could cure basically almost anything. So that's where I decided, okay, 21 days is the number. After the fast and after starting a carnivore/ketogenic diet, the pain was still there, even though I didn't feel a peak of inflammation after I ate because my food was very, very anti-inflammatory. But the pain was still here and it was quite constant. And it was really, really hard. I couldn't live my life the way I wanted it. And I decided to do something. So I went back to the hospital to talk to my oncologist, and I told him, look, all my blood work showed that I'm improving. And he said, yes, you are. But I'm still in terrible, terrible pain. And he gave me some painkillers, didn't work. And at some point, he told me, look, I know that's not what you want to do, but I will highly recommend doing some chemotherapy. Maybe don't go through the whole protocol that we first discussed, but what about 6 sessions of chemotherapy? And I thought about it for a split second, and I was in such a pain. I couldn't sit. I couldn't stay standing still. I couldn't walk. I couldn't do anything. And I told him, okay, let's do it. So I did a first session of chemo, a second, a third, and after the third, the pain was completely gone. And I told my oncologist, okay, I stop. I'm at a point where I had the benefits of Western medicine. I had the benefits of chemo. My pain is gone. I feel much better. But I feel inside my body that if I go more, I'm going to poison myself. And again, I'm not saying that anybody should do the same. It's not any kind of advice. It's what I felt for myself. And I decided to stop after 3 sessions of chemo, to just use the chemo for the pain and not as a treatment for cancer. And my oncologist looked at me and said, you're crazy. It's working. We don't have the same result on everybody. You're one of the lucky one with such fast results. Finish at least your 6 sessions. And I say, no, it's not what my body's telling me. And he was very open-minded. He said, okay, they took away my plug and they let me go.
Tell me about some of those other key moments on this. Was it a 4-month journey? Is that right?
Yeah. I was diagnosed on September 10, and my last MRI on January 9. So exactly 4 months later.
That is quick. So 4 months is not long.
Cancer-free. I'm diagnosed in September. I do my fast late September, early October. And early November, the pain is at its peak.
Yeah.
My weight is at its lowest. The cancer is literally eating me alive. I went from 70 kilo to 49 kilos. Beginning of November is the worst. that's where I decided to do some chemo. First session, following Valter Longo's advice, I fast before the chemo, during the chemo, and after the chemo. 1 day, 1 day, 1 day. No side effects, nothing. I felt completely normal. Second session of chemotherapy a few weeks later, I decided not to fast. I wanted to know if it was the fasting or if it was just, I don't know, my immune system or maybe the kind of chemo they used. So I didn't fast. I ate a very light keto dinner the day before, and the day during, I was sick like a dog. I threw up all over the house. I was sick. I had diarrhea for a few minutes, then I was constipated the next day. It was a nightmare. Third session of chemo, I said, okay, I'm going to fast again. Nothing. Zero side effects. So that's the first. The second big moment for me was the power of fasting, not only when I did it by itself, but mixed with the chemotherapy. And Valter Longo is very clear on it. Not only fasting would pretty much stop, or at least reduce dramatically the side effects, but it also improved the efficiency of the chemotherapy. And I completely witnessed that in my flesh. So that was the second big moment for me. And the third one, it's a little funny. So I'm feeling better and better throughout December. December is really when I felt that I was feeling better. I had more energy. I could do. I could exercise again. I felt really much better. But between Christmas and New Year, my mom comes from France to visit us in South Carolina. And what you need to know about my mom, she's a Michelin star pastry chef. So she comes, and for a week, I completely fell off the wagon. I had pie and cakes and crepes and pizza and pasta and everything she would make, homemade bread, everything for a week. And at the end of that week, I look at my next MRI coming up in less than a month, and I'm starting to freak out. And I'm thinking to myself, even though I feel great, I'm thinking to myself, the next MRI is going to be a nightmare. I'm going to go backward because of that week. So I decided to do another 21-day fast. What I end up doing is for 21 days, I fasted during the week and I ate a keto diet during the weekend. So it was not a strict full 21-day fast. It was 15 days of fasting within a 21-day period. And I did that, and I don't remember exactly, I think it was 1 or 2 days after I ended that 21-day period was my next MRI. And I go to my oncologist office, and he has a big smile. And he tells me, Mr. Evrard, I don't say that very often in my line of work, but you are disease-free. My vision to heal cancer was very simplistic. Less toxins in, more toxins out, period. And as many micronutrition and antioxidants as possible inside my body. I think someone can do it through a plant-based diet. I couldn't. So where do I get that nutrition? Where do I get those anti-inflammatory effects? Where do I get all that micronutrition that I need? And my research led me to very high quality, organic, free range, 100% grass-fed beef and organ. I believe that put in the proper environment, the body is self-healing. I truly believe that. And, you cut yourself with a knife, you're bleeding, the skin is open, and you don't do anything. You just make sure the environment is proper, so clean, basically. But you don't do anything, and it will heal. And nobody's surprised when that happens. Why would everybody be surprised and jump to the roof when it happens to inside your body, to a tumor, for example? What's the difference? There's no difference. Put in the proper environment, the immune system will fight any disease, and the lymphatic system will cleanse the toxins from that disease. That's what I believe. And that's where I put my money on. That was my bet, that my immune system could beat cancer. And what I did was put my body in the proper environment. Again, with fasting, so I had a lot of digesting rest. with a proper diet, very clean and very high quality diet, with ice cold bath and cryotherapy, with rebounding, with breathing, Tai Chi, stress management, everything I could think of in order to put my body in the perfect environment for both my immune and lymphatic system to do their job. And again, there's nothing scientific about what I'm telling you. It's what I felt and the state of mind that I was in when I did what I did.
Yeah. Idea that if you put it in the correct environment, and that's the thing you did, right, Fred? You, as you say, you were lucky enough to have the finances, the support, the resources to go to this organic diet, to devote basically your life to staying alive. That's effectively what you did, right? You didn't go to work. You literally devoted your waking hours to actually, how do I stay alive? Perhaps you could walk us through a sample day. You know, when you're right in the middle of this, you know, tell me what would happen. You would wake up at what time, and what would you do sequentially through the day?
Well, I usually wake up around 6:30. I'm an early guy. So the first thing I would do was my breathing when I'm still in bed. So I'm done with it.
Then what does that look like? What does that look like?
Deep breathing exercise, you know, trying to use full lungs capacity. We have many. So that's something I did for, 5-10 minutes every morning. Then I would sit down and do my meditation. Then after that, I'd wake up. I get up, and one of the things that I refuse to do is to act, think, and look like a sick person. So it would have been very easy for me to get up, you know, go to the couch, shower once in a while, not shaving, because, you know, who cares? But no, every single day I shaved, I brushed my hair, I took my shower, I made my bed. I did everything like someone who was about to have a normal day. And out of respect for my wife, also, I didn't want to look like I was already dead. So those little things, you know, those little psychological things were also part of my healing, I guess. I would fast until the first part of the fight. The first 2 months, I was too weak to do any kind of exercise, so I just did a little bit of Tai Chi and a little bit of like 1 minute walk, and that was it. I would rest lying down the rest of the day. But after November, when I started to be able to move again and to exercise a little bit and to walk, then I would add 2 or 3 moments during the day when I would go outside and be topless in the sun and walk and play with my dog and run a little bit. Going back to my martial art training, then I would break my fast with a vegetable juice, maybe around 2, something like that. And I don't think I am completely healed yet. I am cancer-free, I am disease-free, I am symptoms-free. But did my body fully recover from the cancer? No, not yet. I think I can do better in terms of perfect health and regeneration. There's some food that are still not doing great for me. I can't have gluten. I can't have processed sugar. Not that I'm a big fan of sugar in any way. I've never been a big sweet tooth. But pizza, for example, it's a pain for me not to be able to go to Italy and have pizza once in a while.
What would happen if you had gluten or pizza or, as you call it, processed sugar?
I would have a diarrhea immediately, and I would have pain until the next day. It would inflame the scar tissue. So what the last MRIs has revealed is that the scar tissue is pretty thick, and it's going to take, my doctor told me it's going to take 2 to 3 years before it's completely healed, before there's no trace of anything. And that scar tissue gets inflamed depending on what I eat. So if I had like a cake or a pie, or if I had a pizza, I would feel it immediately. Nothing compared to when I had cancer, of course, but I could feel the inflammation where the scar tissue is. So that's why I don't consider myself completely healed. And maybe my vision of healing is a little bit, my standard is a little bit higher than most people, I don't know. But for me, being symptoms free is not enough. Being tumor free is not enough. I want to thrive. I want top-notch health. I want complete regeneration. Like, I want to be better than what I was before the cancer. And at the moment, I'm 90% to where I was before. I still have to be careful to that, what kind of food I eat, but I want to be 110%. I want to be 120%. I want to be better now that I'm 50 than I was when I was 48. And I want my body to completely regenerate. And it's still a work in progress.
If we look back 2.5 years ago, before you had the diagnosis, before you had any symptoms, you're getting on with your life, you're teaching martial arts, you're traveling the world, you're paying attention to your diet, you're moving regularly, you're looking after yourself as much as you can. But of course, you've got a very busy job, a demanding job. This sounds like many people I see, right? They're really trying their best to do things, but there are certain things. There's work stress, there's kind of life stress that's going on in the background. Of course, there was a genetic predisposition with you, and everyone's got different genes and they'll have different susceptibility to different illnesses and different diseases, of course. But if you could turn the clock back now to those days, knowing what you know now, would you do anything differently?
Before the cancer, definitely. I would probably try to travel less. And what I definitely would do is, the moment I had those symptoms, at the very first time I saw those symptoms, I would go on a 21-day fast immediately. And very probably, or at least that's what I think, that would be the end of the disease. That would be the end of the story. I would be cured. The symptom will have disappeared and the tumor would have been gone. That's what I think. But still, like you said, it was invisible stress compared to most people, but it's still a stress on the body. Yeah. And when you travel that much, when you get so much jet lag, when you have to change your lifestyle every 3 weeks or 4 weeks, it's a lot of pressure on the body. And even though I loved what I did and traveling, I now travel a lot less. A lot less. I haven't traveled in 3 years actually at all because of COVID. But even now that we're pretty much over it, I'd be very careful where I go and for how long I travel and stuff like that. So that's one of the things that I would change now.
You wish, I think, that you'd got it checked out sooner and not waited for 5 months. And this is a very important point for me to highlight, because people often delay going in to see their doctor to get things checked out. Men are very well known for this.
If there's not a lot of things that I regret in my life, one of them definitely is not to have been diagnosed when I was stage 1. And yeah, it's one of the things that I would change definitely in a heartbeat. Is the moment I had blood in my stool and the moment I felt a little discomfort, I would have go and get tested for sure. And like I told you at the very beginning, if I would have been diagnosed of a stage 1 colon cancer instead of a stage 3, my life would have been so much easier. And I'm convinced that I would have beat it in 21 days. There's a saying in Buddhism that always resonated with me. It says, what man doesn't learn with wisdom, he will learn with pain and suffering. So there's always some signs where our body is trying to tell us, hey, if you change something, if you are wise about it, maybe we can heal, maybe we can get better. And most of the time we don't listen. And then the body knocks at the door again with a little bit of symptoms, not too bad, a little bit of blood in your stool, a headache, a knee pain, a joint pain, something. And you still don't listen. And then the body kick the door open and slap you in the face. Here is your cancer. You should have listened to me earlier. So that's how I felt about myself. And that's why I told you I only have one regret. It's not to have listened to the sign earlier. That being said, my story is a little different. I didn't learn a lot about my body because I knew everything that I used, or almost, except the latest biology and scientific research, obviously. But what I did is I compound everything, and I did everything every single day. But for someone who had an unhealthy lifestyle or was not in tune with his or her body before, I understand that an adventure such as mine could be a great teacher, a great lesson. Nevertheless, what I've learned with that cancer is how to help others. Because I would have never thought that I could speak to someone who has cancer and not give any kind of advice because I'm not a doctor, but sharing my experience, my story, and that maybe they could find or one or two or three elements that I can use, or even better, inspire them to make their own research. And put in the perfect environment or the proper environment, the body can heal itself. So that's my core belief. Nevertheless, not everybody is ready to do what I did. Not everybody is in the perfect environment, like I've said before. And it's always a good idea to have both Western medicine and unconventional medicine as tools in your toolbox.
We just want to give options. We want to give options for people. We want to give alternative solutions that you can look at and evaluate.
And your research, and I implemented melatonin, green tea, vitamin D3, zinc, and few other supplements to really help me finish the healing completely. And compared to all my friends around me, when I was doing the chemo, I was the only one not to lose one single hair, nothing. I didn't lose my hair. I wasn't sick. I didn't lose much weight. I mean, because of the fasting, I really went through the chemo quite easily.
So for those of you watching, it's important to know that when you fast, you greatly reduce the symptoms of chemotherapy. And I mean, it's almost like the body goes in this protect mode. So that's basically what happened, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
A thing going on like with your bowels. Did you go on an antibiotic? Did you go through a lot of stress? Did you is there any potential thing that could have triggered this thing right before you started having skin problems that you could think of?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So basically the terrain was there because of my family history, but the trigger was definitely psychological. So that was a lot of stress, and we lost a lot of money. That's the first thing. Second, COVID hit, and all my schools, I have 20 schools around the world, martial arts schools, and all my schools, they all closed at once. So
wow,
no money, no nothing. And that's exactly when I start to have the symptoms.
Okay. Because unfortunately, the way the whole system works is there's a lot of money to be made. And unfortunately, it's like you can't freely even talk about some of these alternative treatments without being shut down. So I'm really happy with this interview because you just shared a lot of great data for people to use in their own healing. And